enjoying this beautiful sunny Saturday morning. Somewhat warm, but just absolutely beautiful. I wanted to come on here and put on this long video to tell you guys that we finally made it. This week I have 2,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough. I asked you all to share this video with anyone you thought would enjoy my content, and just asked you to like and subscribe even if you never watched me again. And these videos, these last couple long videos, have been getting a lot of views, and I think some of you subscribed because I got to 2,000. So I thought it would be kind of fun to celebrate and show my new viewers some of my old content. And so I went back through my old videos and went through thousands and thousands of photos of ideas and different things, little trips and stuff we took. And I won't, before I start that though, I wanted to remind you about this Easter grass they have at the Dollar Tree. It's like paper, and it's kind of an ecru color if you want to keep things more natural than, you know, the green and pink grass. I put some under my bowls, my eggs in my bowls. I put some in that little chocolate rabbit that I painted to look like chocolate and put some jelly beans in him. I had to cut the pieces up kind of small to get them in there. But it's so pretty and natural looking, and if you're wanting to do your designs with the natural color, you need to get to the Dollar Tree right away and get some of that. And this next video that we'll be doing next will be diving into some more Easter decor. So I'm going through all my old videos, and I found so many of the I'm home screenshots that I use at the beginning of my videos. And these are the favorites that I picked out that I didn't even remember half of them. Let's see how good my memory is as we go back through these pictures. This is the mantle in my bedroom. This is my coffee table in the fall. Now, I used to start my channel with, "Hello everybody, I'm home, so come on in." And I did that for a few videos, and I thought that sounded kind of corny. So I went back to just saying, "Hello everybody, I'm home," and starting the video. And now it's like, "Hello everybody, I'm home. Welcome back to my channel." And this flower right here, I grew this in my backyard. I thought this was just stunningly beautiful. And then a lot of times I'll just use pictures of roses or a little vignette from my house. And then in this next one, I had a scrap of old wallpaper. I got an old wallpaper book at, well, I get them at the wallpaper and paint stores. When they're outdated, they'll give them to me. And I use them in my miniatures and some of my crafting. And I thought this was just the most beautiful wallpaper. I would love to have a whole room wallpapered in that. I'll save that for when I manifest my mansion, you know. And then a lot of times I would just use my roses. But I've evolved a little bit with my I'm home. But I had a lady tell me that she'll have YouTube on and she'll be doing things around the house. And when she hears me say, "Hello everyone, I'm home," she said, "I just stop everything, get me a cup of coffee, and sit down and watch your video, even if it's an old one that I've seen before." And I thought that was really nice. So there's some screenshots of my I'm home. And then this was I think this was the second video I did. It was Man's Chapel. If you've watched my channel for very long, you know I love Man's Chapel. I had gone there on Memorial Day. And this was one of my first videos, so I didn't know what I was doing. So I just sat on the grass out in front of the church and told all about the church and my connections there. And just spent, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes telling you about the church. And it's got music playing in the background. And I soon discovered that music playing in the background is annoying after a while. I've got 2 video channels that I watch that I have to mute if they're giving a tour of their homes or a shop and there's loud music playing. I just can't take it. So I quit doing music all the way through my videos, and I cut it out altogether in a few. And then I think this was my very first video, and I was basically just showing you how you could take perennials and plant them in little pots and use those for plants instead of going out and buying some. And then you just take the pot and put it in a shed or the garage, and it lays dormant. And then in the spring they come back up, and it's like free gardening. You don't have to buy anything. No bulbs, no seeds, no nothing. Just plant a little piece of your perennials in the flower pots. And that was my first video, and I'm real proud of it. You guys need to go back and look at some of my old videos. So then this one was called Getting to Know My Channel. It was like my 3rd or 4th video, and it basically just went through everything that I was hoping to make this channel about. I wanted to show you guys recipes and decorating and thrifting and gardening and all the things that you're going to see here in a little bit. And this was one of my favorite pictures. I used it a lot. It's an old table that I got for 50 cents at a yard sale, and it's made out of real old wood with an old blue bowl that I have since broken, with some peaches that grew in my own front yard that I didn't even know I had a peach tree until I saw a tree full of them one time, and a little antique sign that I just painted myself. And I just kind of wanted you guys to see some of the antiques that I've thrifted, of course. This one was one that I'd manifested out of Victorian magazine many, many times. And I found it one day in a 50-cent estate sale. And I brought it home and scrubbed it up, and it turned out beautiful. And it's got this beautiful goddess-like woman on the top, and it cleaned up really nice. And then I wanted to talk about family and how important that is. And this is my dad, the first guy in the picture, and his aunt and his dad and his grandma and all the people. These are his cousins, the Bars of Eastland, Illinois, that were very special to him. And their family and their home was very instrumental in how I turned out. They were just the most wonderful people and lived the old country life that I grew up watching and seeing. And this is my mom, the little girl in the pink dress, and my Aunt Susie. Aunt Susie had just got a perm, my grandma said. And Aunt Kathy hadn't been born yet. They were 3 little girls living through the Depression on an old dirt country road. They lived on 3 dirt country roads. And I used to love to hear their stories, and that molded how I became, I'm sure. And this is my beautiful mother. This was her senior picture. And when they used to use the drapes across their shoulders, and I thought when I graduated that's how it would be. I'd have a drape across my shoulder, but they didn't do that by then. But I thought that was really cool. She was a beautiful, beautiful mother. And this is my uncle's that I didn't find until I was 46 years old. And I haven't dove into that story yet, but I may. I actually wrote a book about that story, and I may start giving you some excerpts of that book and see if you'd be interested in it. And I would be glad to tell you the story. I just haven't went there yet. But those are my uncles whom I loved very, very much. And then comfort. I found this in one of those first videos that I said I wanted to show you comfortable things. And this is a little nook in the corner of my kitchen where, now that's an actual tablecloth. You know how we go through the shower curtain tablecloths and the drapery panel curtain that I use for tablecloths? This is an actual round tablecloth I found for like 50 cents at a flea market, and it's beautiful, and I use it a lot in the fall. So I do have real tablecloths, guys. And then I just like the coziness of my house and the smells, and I make this at Christmas time and Thanksgiving, and just flopping down on the couch. This is our nephew Jeff, who we lost recently and miss him very much. And those are my kids when they were little. They used to just adore Jeff, and this was at Thanksgiving, and they'd all flop on the couch and take naps and mess up the pillows, and I just loved it. And of course, another thing of comfort in my home is when everything's a mess, like Christmas, when there's wrapping paper everywhere and you just don't care and everybody's happy and together. And I just wanted to show you guys those kinds of things. And then, of course, baking. I'm always baking a pie. And memories. Let's see if my memory is good enough to tell you about these things. This was a watercolor print that I found at a thrift store that was beautiful. And this is a perfect French country basket that I got at a place for 50 cents, and I can't find it now. I don't know what I did with it. And then remember how I would put the silly little trays on the bed to show you what you can do on a cold, cozy afternoon. And I said I would probably never do it again, but I've done it several times for you guys to show you how it is. And I actually did this a couple times. Sat in there and watched TV, YouTube, and had coffee. And my recipes, I had 2 different screenshots of recipe things that I was going to show. And they were on 2 different videos, I think. And I'm not real good at this yet, so I don't know how to do all the actual cooking and videoing, and my husband probably wouldn't want to stand there and video me doing this. So I just took pictures and told the recipe and wrote it out on the screen, and that seemed to work pretty good. But I know a lot of them do it the other way, and they actually film it. Brenda Gant, I don't know if any of you watch her. But she actually films it. And she'll just reach up on the shelf and move the camera and do all kinds of things. And she's good at it. But I haven't learned to do that yet. I might someday. And then, of course, decorating. That's kind of my thing with all my thrifted stuff. I like to decorate. So I took a lot of pictures of vignettes of that. And then this was my mantle in the summer. I keep all my crystal and cut glass and pressed glass up on the mantle because it's clear and I can change it for any season. And this is on my porch with some old birdhouses I thrifted, and one of them a friend made for me. And baking is one of my biggest passions. Now, I like to get my kitchen scrubbed down like it's going to be inspected and start baking. Like, if I have a day free where my house is clean and I don't have anywhere to go, I like to get in there and bake like 5 or 6 little pies or a couple big pies, some cakes. Of course, I told you I make tuna can cakes. I use those little chicken cans or tuna cans. Any short little can, you can make little cakes. And I can make a whole bunch of them, decorate them up, and give them to all my friends. And this was made in a smaller can, but it was a can. It wasn't a pan. And then my pies, my friend Holly Taylor, her recipes in her book are outstanding. And I keep saying I'm going to share one of them with you, and I am. And just all how pretty everything looks on the Flow Blue. I think that pancakes and meatloaf and just about any kind of food looks beautiful on a Flow Blue plate or a blue transferware plate. And then, of course, my collections. Got to go down that road. I didn't know that I wanted to collect these until I found them in a thrift store, and I found 5, and then I found another one. They're ruby red swirl anchor hawking cups, and I got them for 99 cents, and I ended up looking for another one and found it. So I added that to my collection. And then, of course, my beautiful moss rose. My grandma had a teapot, and that's how I got started on that. And just picked those up in cranberry glass at all the thrift stores, and it all goes beautiful together. And my mercury glass, that little bird's mercury glass, and my crystal, and my compote dishes, and anything old. You know me, if it's old and pretty, I like it. And my grandma had a lot of cut glass and pressed glass because she was a school teacher and a Sunday school teacher, and kids gave her that as gifts. And Mrs. Mocklet got me on the Flow Blue and the cranberry glass. And then cookbooks. This is a display from my store, but you know, I've shared Marge Clark's cookbooks with you, and I wanted you guys to know about them, and ended up some of you got on Amazon and found your own copies, and a lady in California had just bought one, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm watching your video," and there she was. And then my friend Holly Taylor, I've touted her book many times on my channel because they're good, and Holly said I could share recipes with you, and I will. Now, the Flow Blue collection, I had to thrift it all. Mrs. Mocklet gave me one piece. My friend Judy Henry gave me one piece. And then I had to thrift the rest. I've never bought a piece in an antique store because they're too expensive. But I was sure excited the day I found this little Flow Blue butter pat at Goodwill for 69 cents. That was the highlight of my year. And then I have a book collection, and I think I've told you this in one of those earlier videos. My husband was a school teacher, and he came home one day and he said, "Laura sent you these." She was their librarian, and they were clearing out some old books. And I didn't even know there were Marcy books from the 50s. And this one's called Marcy Catches Up and A Man for Marcy. And I have them on my shelves, and people get the biggest kick out of them when they walk by and see Marcy books. And I've since bought a few of my own that I found. And then, of course, my Halloween collection. I like miniatures, and this is my miniature Halloween collection, which I have 2 rooms full of it, and I probably have 300 pieces, and I've made almost all of them. I've purchased a few little things here and there, but I like to make things. And then, of course, you know, I like my little chalky Santas, the little 25-cent Santas I find at the thrift stores or rummage sales, and I take them home and stain them and put a coat of golden oak on them and make them look a little more expensive than they are. And they're all beautiful, and they all have their own little expressions. And this is a whole drawer full of them. And I love them. And it's so hard for me to part with one of those little guys. I can't even tell you because they have different faces. I call them names like guys in our community that look like them. I'll say there's a so-and-so Santa. And they do look like these men. And, of course, there's some of my old books with one of my little chalky Santas that would probably cost $0.25. And I put the stain on him and wiped him down, and it just elevates him a little bit and makes him look a little more high end than the little chalky Santas that you used to get at Dollar Tree and Dollar General. I think is where they usually sold them. But I've got a big collection of them, and they're beautiful. And old dishes. I guess it was growing up on the bar farm, being there a lot, being at my grandma's house with 2 big china cupboards full of old dishes that just turned me on so much to old dishes. And I pick them up at thrift stores and flea markets. I hardly ever buy one in an antique store. It's got to be pretty cheap before I'll buy it. I found this, I guess it's a relish or celery tray, and I love it. And all my fruit plates. You've seen these in my videos before if you're a long-time viewer, but gosh, look at those. Aren't they gorgeous? They don't make things like that anymore. So I have to save them. And I don't give more than $1 or $2 for them. Maybe 3 is my high end. And then a lot of ironstone. And you can just throw a rose up against that stuff and then you're all decorated. And there's a Flow Blue bowl I found at a thrift store. And this isn't a plate. It's one of those like flue covers. And it's very vintage, and the glass broke on it right after I bought it from my friend Linda Kiger uptown at her shop. It broke right away. I dropped the chain and it broke. So I decoupaged it or Mod Podged it. I don't know what you call it, but it's sealed up because it would be hard to find glass that fit that. And all my hand painted plates. You'd be surprised what the thrift store marks for 99 cents. They just think this stuff's old grandma stuff. And I'm grandma all the way, I guess. And this one was actually one of my grandma's. And this one is so beautiful. And this is the one I've misplaced. I've got to dig through my stuff and find it. But since I found that platter, I found a pitcher and some cream and sugars. And it's beautiful in the springtime. I get those all out in the springtime and put them on top of my ironstone, on my big ironstone cabinet, and just set all these pink dishes in front of it. It looks really pretty for spring. And then I was so excited the day that I looked through the Goodwill and they didn't have anything. And I always back up against the other side of the aisle and look underneath the bottom shelf. And there was this beautiful cherry plate. It's really old. And this was in one of my videos. I don't even remember taking this picture. But I wasn't into milk glass at this time. I took the picture for my friend who collects it. And back there on the second shelf is my mom's little grape patterned candy dish. I should have bought that day, but I remember thinking, oh, I'm not really into milk glass. And then if you saw my video a couple videos back, I found all that cheap milk glass, and now I'm all milk glass. You guys, no one's helped me with my addiction yet. I'm kind of disappointed in you for that. You all encourage me like my husband does. And then, of course, old books. My grandma was a school teacher way back when they had 2-room schools, and my dad was in her class for many, many years, and she kept a lot of books when they closed all those schools down, and she had them stacked up in her house, and I got a lot of them. But then a lot of times, like our library sells them for $0.25, and then you can find them at flea markets, and they're usually expensive at flea markets, but at thrift stores, they're usually 50 cents or $1, and I like the muted colors. And then of course this is one of my little miniature books. It's only about 1 inch big. And then this little apple book I've showed you many times. I like to sit it out on my counter in the fall because it's just a gorgeous book. And one day I decided to make it in miniature to put it in one of my doll houses. So I snapped a picture of it and I made a couple of apple books to put in my doll house. And I don't know, I know Kindle came out and people do their reading online, and I do read a little stuff online, but there's nothing like a book. And I put my old books in the freezer in a big shopping bag in the deep freeze out in the garage for a couple of days to make sure they're all, like, I guess that's my way of disinfecting them. And then of course I collect old Christmas books, and I make books, and I sew. Now I used to make quilts. I've made about 21 quilts. And I've given some away. I've kept a few. And these are some buttons and hoops I hung on some dish towels to put in my kitchen. I made this quilt for Mrs. Mocklet, a lady that taught us at school that got me started on all the antique stuff. And I like a big basket sitting around. I've got 3 of them sitting around. I like to make little primitive quilts for doll beds. This is a little doll bed that my brother-in-law helped me make out of an old chair that broke. We used the back of the chair for the headboard, part of it for the footboard. I made a mattress. I made sheets. I made pillows. I made pillowcases. And I made the quilt. and it's 1-inch squares, and I dropped a can of stain on this quilt. Can you believe that? It was sitting on my counter and I dropped a can of stain. But I like for my quilts to look primitive, so I just left it. And if you can tell there's a big stain over there, but it looks like it's 100 years old or maybe older. So another thing I do is I thrift fabric. The fabric in the stores these days isn't that good. I haven't found any real good quality fabric, but I'm like my mom. If I see a pretty shirt or blouse, I buy it and I cut it all apart and I use it for my quilting and my crafts and carrots. I just made some carrots the other day for Easter. This is a jacket. It's ugly as sin for wearing it, but it was such beautiful fabric. It was probably from the 80s, and I bought it, and I'll make something out of that. This was another jacket that was actually pretty, but it was too small for me. I got it for like $1, and I thought it looked like the stoneware pattern on my Crocs, so I made some little pillows and hearts, and these are some drapery panels I showed you. I got a big pile of them. They had orange roses, and I made kitchen curtains out of them. And then this is another little quilt I made with odds and ends men's shirts. I can get a man's shirt on bag day for little or nothing, and on regular days they're $1. Cut them up and you get quite a bit of fabric for quilts. And I love to take old doll beds that I find out thrifting, or I make them. I like them. I put them in my shop and I sell every one. And I thought this one looks so cute from the side. It's very primitively made, and some grandfather or dad made that for their little girl probably back in the 20s, and it's just beautiful. And I make little quilts, little pillows, little sheets and mattresses, and I just have a ball. I'm like a kid when it comes to the doll beds and the doll chairs. And then I buy old tablecloths, you know that, and this old red tablecloth that was so faded out that I got for $1 or $2. I have made so much stuff with that. I've made pillows and everything. And then this was something I made for my friend Rosie. It's made out of a square shopping bag. The plastic ones you get at TJ Maxx or Burlington or Marshall's Home Goods, they all sell them for 99 cents all year long. But at Christmas time, I take one of the bags and I sew it up and I stuff it, and it's plastic now, and you can sit them on your porch. She had this sitting on a bench right outside her door, and it was just beautiful. And it can get wet, it can get snowed on, it doesn't matter because it's plastic. But they are beautiful, especially in the wintertime when you don't want to put pillows out that are made of fabric. I saw that day in the store, and I thought Rosie would love that, so I went home and made her a pillow. And then I said I wanted to show you my photography, and every picture you see on my videos is my photography. I don't steal anyone else's pictures. I do all my own. I'm not claiming to be a great photographer. I have my brother's camera. He was a photographer and very good at it. But these days, you can take a pretty darn good picture with your phone, and that's what I use most times. And I've learned to edit a little bit and crop and use filters and such to highlight colors, but I'm not a great photographer by any means, but like I said, a lot of people are taking their senior pictures with their phone and just copying them themselves, and they turn out great. So I think it's great, and I just like to make up little vignettes with my flowers and my pretties that I thrift and show them to you guys. And this was some roses that I bought at the grocery store one day because I love orange roses. And that's a towel that my boys gave me for Mother's Day. And it says, I love you, a bushel and a peck and a hug around the neck. And it's just laying on my kitchen sink. But I just love roses and flowers. And guys, you can have anything you want when you thrift. And you can have beautiful stuff. And this is a picture I took at Man's Chapel one day. I went there and it had been raining and it was a cold, dreary day. And I just thought these pictures turned out fabulous. For as dark and gloomy as it was, you can actually see the water on the roof. And this picture I took in my backyard of the flag, and it was one of my most popular pictures. People were like, oh my gosh, we love that picture. They said that one star is just lit up. And I think this was the end picture of my Man's Chapel video, like my second video. And people made a lot of comments about liking that flag picture. So yeah, everything you see is a picture that I took or one of my boys took for me, or something I shared from one of my friends. I don't try to, sometimes I'll take a picture out of a book, but I give them credit. And these are my gardening pictures. This was one of my first videos when I showed you how to do the cheap perennials in the pots to save money for gardening. And this was after I'd been to a little garden center, a little produce shop, and then my thrifted tablecloth back there with some mums and my morning glories. Gosh, guys, get you a pack of morning glory seeds for $1 or $2. Plant them, and next year you'll have morning glories all over your yard, because when they go to seed, they spread, and birds take them to other parts of your yard. I have so many places in my yard that we actually mow down because they're out in the middle of the grass. And these are my double hollyhocks that I bought a root for. And then painting. I'm not claiming to be a great painter by any means, but I like to paint. And if I could say one thing to you guys, I would say do something that you don't know how to do. Just do it. I didn't know how to paint. I took a little class off of a lady who did know how to paint, and she taught me a lot of things, but you just do it. They don't have to be great. This is a house in our town that doesn't look like that now. They've painted it, but this painting hangs in that house. And I did these back in the late 80s. And I just like to do it, so I do it. I don't claim to be a great painter by any means. And then building, I like to take all kinds of old wood. Anybody throws some wood towards me, I'd take it and build something with it. This little cabinet I made for our bathroom, and the boards in the back aren't even straight. There's big gaps in them. And I didn't even care. That little filigree piece on top, I put it on upside down because I wanted it to hang down a little bit. And I stained it my mossy green paint, and I love it. And then, of course, I built a couple rooms in our big barn to have a little shop. Absolutely did not know what I was doing. I went on YouTube. I told my husband we were thinking about buying a building uptown, and I said, we got that big barn. We've got a lot of space in there. How hard would it be to build a couple of rooms? And he said, well, I don't know how to build. His brothers and his dad built. And I said, well, I think I could do it. We had a lot of stuff in our barn because his brothers were carpenters and they left a lot of scraps. And I had to buy a little bit, but I did it. I didn't know what I was doing, but it makes two nice little rooms to put stuff out in, and it looks good. I don't know if a carpenter could come in and inspect it and say I did a good job, but it's still standing, and I love it. And I just figured it out. I'm a lot like my mom that way. She wanted to do something, she'd try it. If she failed, she failed, but she tried, and she succeeded a lot of times. This is a big fireplace that I made out of all kinds of old yucky scrap wood. And across the top's a real nice mantle that's a 2-inch thick oak board that was out in the barn that would belong to my brother-in-law. And I didn't know it was a fancy, expensive board. And he came looking for it one day, and I said, oh my gosh, I think I used that for my mantle. And he saw it, and he said, that's beautiful. Leave it. And then remember the time that my contractor that was doing my bathroom said that you couldn't put real wood down on your bedroom floor because you just can't do that? It'll do all kinds of crazy things and cause you trouble. And I did it anyway. I just ignored his idea of putting laminate down or carpet, and I went and bought some cheap pine boards. I laid them on the floor at Menards because they have a concrete floor, and I just laid boards on the floor to make sure they were straight and even. And I bought the cheaper pine because I wanted it to look old and worn and beat up, and I beat it up a little bit and I stained it, and it's still too nice. I wish it would look worse, but it will someday. And then remember the day that my pub table on my patio with the glass top shattered? And I love that table because I bought it from a friend of mine up the street. She put it on Facebook Marketplace for cheap, and I called her immediately. I think I ran right up to her house and said, I'll take it. It's beautiful. It's tall. It has 4 bar stools that go around it, and it looks beautiful on our patio. So I took some furring strips, and I just cut them and put them in that space and cut a hole for the umbrella, and I stained it a little bit, and I wrapped a rope around the edge that I got at Dollar Tree and glued it down, and I liked it before it was stained, and I still have it. That was 2 years ago. And then remember the time that my cabinet above my washer and dryer came crashing to the ground, and behind it was a mess of 2 different layers of drywall, and I don't know how to drywall, and I was too cheap to pay somebody to re-drywall it. So I took furring strips and put 2 on each side and started going across with furring strips, and I stained it and I trimmed it out, and it's beautiful. Guys, it's beautiful. I love it more than if I had had it professionally done with drywall. Furring strips are my wood. I love them. I've made so many things with furring strips. They're cheap and they're rough, but you can sand them and you can stain them. And this is what it looks like behind my washer and dryer. And that picture up there, I bought that years ago at a thrift store for $1.97, I believe. And on the back of it, it's got a signed little card from the painter, and it's a print, but if you touch it, it feels like canvas, and it's feels like paint. It's gorgeous for $2, and it hung in my dad's house for many years. I gave it to him because he didn't have much pretty art on the wall, and when he passed away, I got that right back, and everyone that came through the house wanted that. They said, "Oh, is that for sale?" And I'm like, "No, that's for me," and I love it because it hung in Dad's house. And then at the bottom, I built a shelf that goes behind my washer and dryer so things don't fall back there, and I took some jars and bottles and put some of my laundry soap and smelly stuff in it, and I love it. Guys, I love this more, and whoever buys my house someday may tear that out and drywall it. I don't know, but I love it like that. And then, remember the time I went to the estate sale and I got this beautiful Victorian bench and this beautiful chair. I think the bench was like $10 and the chair was $1, and I reupholstered them with the pretty red and white toile fabric. And I just love them, and I've still got them in my house, and I use this one at my desk. Then the little TV tray that had an eagle on it, I got for a couple bucks. I took a print from a calendar and kind of tore around the edges so it was rough, and then I went over it with a glue stick and let big pieces of the glue stick show and dry, and it looks like paint. This looks like a little hand-painted table, guys. It sits next to my desk and holds extra papers and folders, but I hate to cover it up because it's so beautiful, and it's just a perfect little size, and it's very, I don't know, it's kind of classy looking. But right now, if you could see it, it's covered with papers and old bills and stuff, but I clean it up every now and then, and I'd like to use it for a bar cart, but it's my table next to my desk. And I'm just going through all this stuff to show you guys what's on my previous videos. Some of you have seen all this, and those of you who haven't, you need to go back and look, because I was kind of entertained by this. This was a table I picked up at Goodwill for $14, but it's by Ethan Allen, I believe, and it had this big discoloration on it, so I thought that's no big deal. The table's so nice. I brought it home, and I mixed up some colors that were kind of in it, and I painted it, and I dare you to find the spot that I painted. I can't find it to this day. Every time I clean it, I put Minwax Golden Oak on the top of it and made it shine, and there it is. You can't tell that there's a faded spot, and I love it. It's the heaviest, hardest, nice table. It's got a drawer in it, and from Ethan Allen. I mean, it was probably $200 new. Then my easel broke that I'd had forever, and I took some furring strips and some old wood that I found out in the garage, and I had an old shelf that was just out in the garage, and I put it as a tray to hold my paints and my brushes. Then I had this little piece that came off of something, put it on there, and I've got an easel. And remember the day, it was like a random Wednesday, I got up that morning and said, this is it with these ugly laminate countertops. I'm putting wood on there. I had planned it for years, but hadn't really started it, so I took this thing off and took the other piece off and went to Menards and bought my cheap pine and started putting down pine countertops. And I went past, I broke all the rules, guys. I went past my counter and cabinet about 4.5 inches. And to give me more space to put my thrifted stuff. You know, I decorate all the time. And then I came out 2 inches past the front of the cabinets. And you're not supposed to do that. There's a measurement you're supposed to stop at. But it's even with my stove, and I love it. It gives me a little bit more space. And then I left all the rough edges that were on the bad pine because I love it. And I stained it. I used a watered down mixture of a red and orange paint first. And then I stained it with the stain that you use on cutting boards so that it's safe. And then I rounded this corner and went out about 8 inches past the countertop so to give me more space. And I rounded it so that if you came around the corner from the other room, you wouldn't get hurt. And then see how it goes out past my counter or my cabinet. And this is what it looks like at night. It's just so beautiful. And I have more space to set my wooden bowls and my apples and my husband's bananas and oranges that he likes. And I just love it. And all I do is wipe it off, guys. People keep asking me, how's it holding up? Well, it's holding up really well. I'm going to put a new coat of finish on it this spring when I can open the windows and get the smell out. But it's holding up great, and I love it. And don't ever let somebody tell you, oh, that can't be done, because it can be done. And then holidays are pretty important to me. I like to decorate for them. I like to get my family together. This is my favorite folk art piece I've ever made. I call her my junk mail angel. I had a stack of junk mail one day. It was like Kmart ads and ads from Walmart and places. And they were the real slick ads that you get on Sunday, And I was thinking, I hate to throw all this away. So I took some tinfoil and just wadded it up in a ball and made her head. And then I made her body and covered it with that slick paper, painted her up, and stained her, and she's not perfect. She's got some bumps and stuff on her, but that's what folk art is, and I love her. And she oversees all my trees. She's on my fall tree. She's on my Halloween tree. She's on my Christmas tree, and I just set her around everywhere, and I love her. And I just call her my junk mail angel. And I've made some since then and sold them, but I'll keep her forever. She's got red hair, and she's just beautiful. I love her. She's my angel. And then this is one of my dollhouse scenes. I don't think you should I don't know if Halloween is considered a holiday so much as the other holidays, but I decorate for it. And this is the country farmhouse dollhouse that I have. This is the dining room, and I made all those little things. And I'm going to be showing you more miniatures coming up, and I'll show you those in more detail. And then remember the time I took the plastic thrifted playhouse I got for $2, and I spray painted it black and brown and gray and threw dirt on it and glue and rocks and twigs and sticks and skeletons and I'd seen this online and I had to do it. I made a Halloween house. And that was one of the funnest projects I've ever done. I just sat out in the yard at the picnic table and gathered up junk out of the yard and threw on it. And I had the best time. We set it in the corner of our living room and light it up in the fall, and it's so pretty. Well, it's spooky. And this is one of my favorite parts. I just put a bunch of glue on there and threw rocks and dirt and crumbled up leaves on it to make it look authentically scary and, not like a plastic dollhouse. It doesn't look like that anymore at all. And you can't mess it up. And then while it's kind of spray some matte finish on it and then throw some baby powder on it, and that looks like dust and dirt. And then just grunge it up. I took a hand and stuck it outside the door. And this is one of the projects where when you use hot glue, it's good if you have the big strings because it looks like cobwebs. And then I bought some cheap Dollar Tree lights that were purple and gold, and I put those inside and some orange lights, and we light it up at night. And you can get all that little stuff at the Dollar Tree, all the little skeletons and stuff. And then I said at the end of it, if you survive this, please like and subscribe. And it's a fun project to do with kids, but it's fun for your house. And then all the different holidays, I make little tucky pillows. I call them tucking pillows. You can just tuck them in anywhere. I took paper and cut it, just ripped it and stained it and printed off these little things and rolled them up like scrolls on my nativity tree. This is my nativity tree. I like the deep jewel-toned ornaments. And I had found this little miniature wine glass at the thrift store. I think it was like a quarter or 50 cents. And it's red. It's beautiful. It's cut glass. And I hung it on my tree, and it's so beautiful. And this is my old vintage ornament tree. I've got a lot of vintage ornaments, some that were family pieces and some people have given me and some I've thrifted. And then this is my beauty shop tree that's all glitz and glamour and sparkle, and it's got sparkly shoes on it and Marilyn Monroe and Dolly and necklaces hanging on it. And this is a shopping bag. A gift bag that I got for Christmas one year, and it was so beautiful, and I love Santa. So I just put it in a real pretty thrifted frame and hung it in my kitchen, and it's really pretty. There's just so many things you can do that look good that are totally cheap or free. And then remember the reversible holly blanket quilt I got at the thrift store when my son was with me that day, and he even encouraged me to get it. It was such a good deal. He looked it up, and it was very expensive, and this was like $19. And then Marge Clark's cookbook had this beautiful Santa mug in it that I'd been looking at since 1994, and I was manifesting it by touching it every time I looked at her book. And one day I was at the thrift store and I found him. He's got a name. He's from Virginia, I believe he was made. He's the most beautiful Santa mug I've ever seen. I don't care for most Santa mugs, but he's beautiful. And I just recently found another one not too long ago for 99 cents. So I have two of them now, but I call him my Marge Clark Santa because I manifested him for so long through her book. And then this is last year, or this past Christmas, I did my dining room kind of primitive and put the red ribbons on it from that tablecloth. I told you I got so much mileage out of that tablecloth. And I just cut some red strips and hung on it to give it a little color, and it turned out really pretty, and I loved it. And then, of course, with my thrifted fabric and my old shirts and everything, I sew up little Valentines and different things for all the holidays. I make so many things. Guys, I have to be busy. I have to be busy and I have to be creating. So these were some Valentines I sewed. These were some little 1-inch Valentine candy boxes that I made out of plastic eraser. No, they were sharpeners, pencil sharpeners, and then little shiny hearts. And then I made the little clay candies and they went in my miniature candy shop. And it made a little 1-inch box of candy and they are so cute. And then, speaking of miniatures, let's just get into the miniatures. Some of you guys that have followed me for a while have seen all these, but I'm showing them to you again. I make a lot of 1-inch plates for my doll houses. I like to take clay and make pottery. This is one of my favorites. It's about 1 inch, just a hair over an inch, red jug that I made and painted with nail polish and glazed it, and I thought it was beautiful. I make a lot of stoneware, salt glazed pottery out of clay and paint it and glaze it. And then I have my little books I love to make. This is one of my favorites. It's got my mom and my grandma's recipes in it. The book is only 1¼ inches tall, and I love it. And these are some holly berries and another kind of berry off of a tree that I picked and made a little canning scene for my dollhouse. And then my little pumpkin men. I call them pumpkin men. And they're only, they're a 1/2 inch tall. They're sitting on top of that cabinet. I made those years ago out of clay. And then remember the time I was making my miniature beauty shop and I thought a set of headphones from the Dollar Tree looked like a blow dryer. So I took the little part that goes in your ear and I put a piece of straw on the end of it, which is red. And I spray painted the whole thing black to make it look like a blow dryer. It's already got the cord. And then I thought, well, the other end of the headphones that goes into your phone looks like a curling iron. So I used that and some of the cord from it and added it to my little beauty shop. And this is it laying on the counter. I made a glamorous beauty shop here. This is what I wish my beauty shop looked like. It's got a little chair made out of styrofoam, and I used the base of one of these candles for the bottom of it, and where the cord comes out, I put a little plastic piece in there to make it look like the pump-up thing. This floor is scrapbook paper, and it's got a little shine to it. I use a lot of scrapbook paper in my dollhouse things because you can get the smaller print. I got that at Hobby Lobby. And then this is a picture of the whole room, which is sparkly, and I use a lot of glam, and the wallpaper is scrapbook paper, and it's got the big roses and flowers in it, and I use some vintage hairstyle designs for framing. And then I set a little truck in there with some trees, and it had some little hairspray cans and stuff. So it says, here I am in my own little world. I love miniatures. I've loved them for years. This is my little, I found this for $1 or $5 at a rummage sale, and it was painted royal blue. I spray painted the whole thing cream and made this little cottage kitchen, and that's actually sitting in the yard. I set it out in the yard so you could see flowers and grass outside. I made the little cabinets, the books, the calendar, the plates, the cookbooks, everything. And it just looks like an old cottage kitchen that you would walk in, and it looks real actually when you're there. And these are little plates I made and little bowls I made out of clay and glazed them and put those on the old country shelves. And then upstairs I have the old country bed made out of popsicle sticks. It's one of my favorite beds I've ever made. And I set it outside so you can see the grass and the flowers out the window. And the shelves are just full of things that I would have in my house. And sometimes I'll find little doll furniture that's not real pretty and I'll paint it. Like that little dresser, I painted it white and put a little shelf above the dresser and have a rose print and some little books and just all the things that I like. I get lost when I'm doing my miniatures. I could work on them all day long, and I'm working on one right now, the teenage bedroom I was telling you about, the 1970s groovy thing that I would have had when I was a teenager, but I've been busy. I've been busy making videos for you guys. And this is a little scene in the living room, the little cottage living room, and it's just old wood on the walls and just that little doily I bought off of Cynthia Spirian. I don't know how you say her name, but I bought that from her. She crocheted it. And then I was looking at this little scene in my antique farmhouse, and there's a little milk glass. That's an antique store, a milk glass cake stand in miniature that I didn't realize I had. And this is a little fireplace I made out of a picture frame. And above it are some little flow blue plates that I made, and I've got it all decorated up for Christmas. This is actually an antique store, miniature antique store. And this is the mantle, and that's a picture that I cut out of something. And there's another little flow blue plate over here on the right, and that's my little 1-inch picture that I painted of Man's Chapel. And I would say 90% of my miniatures, and the rest of them I buy one every now and then, but I can make most of them. And here's another flow blue plate that I made, and a crock that I made. And here's a little picture that I bought, and there's a little flow blue plate that I made. And this is my little Christmas store. Well, it's just my antique store decorated at Christmas, and a lot of little plates and calendars and things that I make. And this is a little primitive cabinet that I made out of balsa wood. And this is a little 1.5-inch oil lamp that my friend Sherry found for me at the thrift store. I just love it. And some little books that I made, and some candy made out of clay that are so small you can't even measure them. And like I said, when I'm filling my antique store with stuff, I can just sit for hours and make books and crocks and wooden bowls and candy. And this was an open house at my antique store. That's why there's candy. And then this is a little, oh gosh, the little book on the left here is the Christmas book that my boys always liked. And then this was the little box of Shiny Brights that I made. I took a picture of a Shiny Bright box, and I made it out of thin cardboard, and I put cellophane across the top, of real hard cellophane, and then little they're the little beads off of a necklace, and made a 1-inch Shiny Bright box. It's one of my favorites. This is looking down on my kitchen table. I put all my stuff on it one time and made the antique shop for you so I could take better pictures. This is one of the attics. I think this is the attic in my French country little cottage, and I just throw everything in there that I'm not using at the time, and it looks like a cluttered attic. And all my little miniature flow blue plates. This little plate's about 1.25 inches long and about 1/2 inch tall. So is this one. I love to make flow blue plates, all kinds of plates actually, and bowls, but my flow blues are my favorite. And these are some little cabinets I made. These are some little beef house rolls that I made. Our beef house is pretty famous for their rolls, and I don't like them, but my husband and my kids do, so I made some. These are probably 1/4 inch tall. They're very, very tiny, and I painted them and glazed them. This is the little Christmas country cottage that I made. I made the bed, I made the table, I made everything. And the little stocking up on the mantle is 1 inch tall. And I sewed it, and I turned it wrong side out. And that was the hardest miniature I ever made, because it took me an hour to turn it wrong side out. But I did. And then the little comforters made out of a little kid's shirt I found while thrifting. And the rocks are out of my driveway that I made my fireplace with. And the little book I made, and all the stuff on the nightstand. And this is another antique store I have. It's more of a primitive antique store. It's kind of modeled after the Vintage Relics store in Rockville, Indiana. I kind of wanted it to look like that. And it's more full of primitives. And then, of course, my Elvis project that I did recently. I had so much fun making this. And you know what, guys? If you have not seen this, I've got sometimes 10 or 11,000 people watching my videos, and only 249 people saw this video. And I don't know if it got lost in the algorithm or what, but if you have not seen this, please go back. Even if you don't like Elvis, I think you'll enjoy this little miniature collection. It's in about a 14-inch by 12-inch tall crate, and it's got like 310 items in it. and I made almost everything, and I wish you'd go back and look at it. It's a fun video, and I keep looking back at that one to see if more views have come up on it, and they haven't. So I don't know how it got lost, but it did. And it got copyrighted because I put some music in it. I didn't put much music, but it got copyrighted, so I don't make any money off of this one, and I don't care. It's so good, and I want you guys to see it. So I made albums, and I made a little record player for it, and I decorated a Christmas tree, and I have a TV and a couch and coffee table and albums. Oh my gosh, there's like 100 albums in there, and a guitar. It's just so much fun. It was one of the, I'm giving it to a friend of mine. She hasn't taken it yet because I haven't put the glass on the front, but it was fun. I kind of want to make one for myself. I might do that. And then, of course, porch love. I love my porch. I sit out there all the time. We have terrible winds out here, and everything gets blown off the porch, and I redecorate it every week because it gets blown apart. But I love it, and everything's thrifted. Everything's handmade. I just love my porch, and I sit out there and talk to you guys a lot. And then vintage postcards, I love. And talking about in my first videos, I said ambiance is important, and that's like, I want my house to be comfortable and warm, but I want it to be pretty too. And I use a lot of lights. And this is on my porch. You can thrift these for 99 cents. You can get them at the Dollar Tree, a little lighted candle. And I like light and I like candles. I don't use too many candles because I just don't, because you can get such nice, like flickering battery candles. But my friend Sherry made these out of wooden bowls, and they were beautiful, and they smelled so good. And I do use them when I can be there with them and make sure I get them blown out. But ambiance is pretty important at my house. I don't like overhead lights. There's a battery operated candle. I don't like overhead lights, and I turn them off at every chance. And I use lamps, battery operated candles, and little lights. And sometimes I'll take a magic marker, like a brown or yellow magic marker, and color the glass light bulb, and it tones them down, and it really helps. And then of course I like my cake stands and my domes. I've got too many of those. And for those of you who didn't see this, I found this little dome at Goodwill for like $2, and it had the most beautiful hand painted roses on it, and it was just the dome. And I actually heard a woman say, oh gosh, it's too bad the plate's not under it. And I thought, who cares? I bought that thing up so quick, put it in my cart, and on the way home I thought, I've got all kinds of plates at home, but if nothing else, I'll just get a little glass plate and put it under it. But I had a lot of plates at home, so when I got home, I went digging through my plates, and I had several glass plates that would have worked. But I found this 7-inch plate with hand-painted roses on it. They might be decals, I don't know, but they look like the dome. And I shined them up. They'd been in a cabinet for years, and I put that little dome on top, and they looked like they had just gotten married. They were made for each other. Look at that. You can't tell that that dome doesn't go with that plate. And I decorated with that, and I still do. I put it away for the winter, and I'll get it out here in the spring and set it out. But guys, that's an expensive looking little set, and it was $2. And that other plate probably was a free bin thing, or 50 cents. So yeah. And then pantry love. I have a closet outside the hallway of my kitchen that I made into a pantry. And I absolutely love having all my stuff in one place. I would like to have a pantry in my kitchen, but I mean, you just literally step out of my kitchen and you're right in front of this closet. And we just used it for a broom closet. So I put some pretty wallpaper in it and some shelves, and I, of course, decorated it all up, and I have tons of everything. I get random little cups to use for my sugars and my flour, and I thrifted all these things and all the cookbooks, and I have lots of measuring spoons and lots of crock bowls and lots of pie pans and rolling pins because I use them. I really use them. And speaking of why I use them, my roots, my great Aunt Grace, I got some of the things from her home, my mom and her sister, and my aunts, and these people, my roots run deep in Illinois and Ohio. These people and their ways formed me. When I make potato salad, I'm thinking of my Aunt Susie. And I'm standing right beside her helping cut everything up for it. And when I make my favorite spaghetti, I've got my mom right there beside me. And my great Aunt Grace, I'm using her big crock bowl to make oatmeal cookies. It's where I come from. And this is my grandpa who shared a birthday with me and his two sisters. The one on the left is Grace. The one on the right is Dora Barr, who came from Barr Farm. She was the mother of all the Barr boys. And I was at her house many, many times as I was growing up. And everything in this house was old when they got it. It was probably handed down from their family. And I just fell in love with all the crock bowls and the old coffee grinders and the rolling pins and the memories and the people and the love and the old-fashioned ways that they showed me. There was a big cherry tree on the side of that house that we picked cherries, and Joyce would make a pie. And this was my Aunt Susie holding me, my Grandma Elizabeth, and my mom. And they were at Aunt Kathy's wedding that was held in someone's living room. And I don't have a picture of Aunt Kathy from that day, but these people are who made me, and they're who I got all my inspiration from. And so in my first videos that I showed getting to know my channel, I shared some pictures of them and told all the things that I hope to show you guys in future videos. And I wanted to introduce you to my family a little bit. And this is my husband and I. This was, we lived in our other little house uptown when this picture was taken. And I don't know. I just wanted you guys to get to know me a little bit. And that's another thing in videos. When you share them with the public, there's a fine line as to how much you show. I don't mind showing you all the decorative stuff. And my kids, these are my twins, and they show up, those little critters show up in the videos quite a bit. I'll show pictures of them. I used to carry them around in a laundry basket because it was easier to get them around the house when I had to take them with me to room. And, of course, they're my heart. They're the joys of my life. But you sometimes have to say, what all do I share? And I mainly want to share ideas and crafts and decorating and recipes and thrifting and all that. But sometimes I want to show you a little bit of my heart. And this is definitely my heart. And I have so many things that I want to show you guys in the future. I have so many ideas running through my head. I'm working on that miniature project. I've got a couple other projects in the works that you don't even know about that I've been working on. And I don't know. It was hard for me at times to know what to share. My boys don't always like for me to share things that they're doing now, like pictures of them and stuff. They're like, really, Mom? And my husband would be on the videos with me every day. He wants to be on, and I may get him on here someday. I'm trying to get Brad on here. But my whole idea of my channel was I want to show them things that interest me. And I think, are they going to be interested in this necklace holder that I made out of an old piece of wood that fell off of our fence, and my husband was going to burn it? And I said, oh, hold up. And he said, oh no, this wood's bad. It's rotten. The paint's off of it. It's bad. I got to burn it. And I said, no, give it to me. And I cut this shape. I have one of those that's black with the velvet on it. And I to stand it up, I put a piece of a back of a frame that I thrifted, and I put a sealer on it so the paint won't come off, and hang my necklaces on it. And I thought, do they want to see that? I almost didn't even put that on there. And a lot of you said, hey, I got some wood and I made me one of those. So sometimes I have a hard time deciding what I should show you or if I'm going too far. Like one day I thought I ought to show them all the cool leather purses I've thrifted and that are really great deals. But do they want to see that? So I asked you and you said, yeah, we want to see more of your closet and your jewelry and all. And I thought, well, I'll do that occasionally. So I did show you some bling and some jewelry that I found. And, I do everything really reasonably. And then this blouse, I was showing you that if I'm going someplace and I'm going to dress up, a lot of times I'll hang the blouse on my door, and then I'll put the earrings through the buttonholes on the collar and the necklace around it so I know what I'm wearing with it. And then one day I was on the porch of this lady's house buying some stuff from her, and she had a lot of stuff on her porch. And I saw this little hen on a nest, and I thought it was all full of water and leaves, and I said, oh, this is cute, and I picked it up, and she said, hey, you've bought a bunch of stuff off of me, throw it in your box, I got to get this stuff out of here. She said, it's driving me nuts. So I cleaned it out and put it in my box, and I had seen a lady on TV that was using these as a butter dish. So I came home and scrubbed it down, and it's an old rare one. I've never found one just like it, but it's rare. And I put my butter in it, and it's sitting on my counter, and I just love it. So it's just little ideas like that. I'll say, I wonder if my people would like to see that, and maybe it gives them an idea. So one lady said, oh man, I have my mom's, and it's in a cabinet. I'm going to get it out and use it for a butter dish. And you know what, guys? If it chips or it breaks a little bit, you're using it and you're thinking of your mom every day. And then remember the day I found the 7-inch Waterford Lismore pattern crystal vase for 50 cents. I was at that estate sale where I got the rooster or the hen on the nest, and she had a whole box of glass, and I pulled this out and it was so heavy. And I said, is this 50 cents? She said, everything today is 50 cents. I want it out of here. And I got it. And I put roses in it all the time, and I love it. And then I was looking back at some pictures, and I thought, man, I don't remember that. But I remember passing on it. Obviously, I don't have them. They were $6.99 a piece, which was too much, but boy, were they gorgeous. And I kind of regretted not buying them. I would have bought them if they were $1 or $2. Believe me. I think they had 6 of them. And then I saw this, and I thought, I collect cake stands. Why didn't I buy that red cake stand? I must have been out of it that day, but I kind of regret it. And I really regret, and I think about these all the time. They were cranberry glass berry bowls, and I think they were $4 for the whole set. And I didn't buy them, and I've thought about them ever since. And I don't know what I was thinking that day. I must have been thinking smart and thinking you don't need all this stuff piling up and becoming a hoarder. I don't know. But then, remember when I manifested these old chairs? I'd seen them on another lady's video, a little bit different pattern fabric, but I thought, oh, I got to have me some of them chairs. Walked into Goodwill, and there they were. One of them was real wobbly, one of them was great. So I decided to take the one that was great, but that was the day that I realized I was in my car, and I didn't have my truck, and I was 45 miles from home. So I had to go back the next day and get it, but I got it. And I manifested these. I saw her video and I told her I loved them, and she said, well, be looking for them. I got these off Facebook Marketplace. 2 weeks later, I went into Goodwill, and there these sat, and they were almost exactly like hers. And then I remembered that I had looked at them in magazines. That's why I liked hers so much. I remembered touching a page in a magazine. I told you guys to touch things. That's another way of manifesting. And I had touched this one in a magazine many times, in Victoria magazine probably. And I thought, I've got to have me a chair like that to sit by the fireplace. And saw hers, manifested them by looking at them and screenshotting the picture of hers, talking to her about them, saying I was going to find him, walked in Goodwill and found it. And here's mine. And I think mine's prettier than the one I touched in that magazine. Guys, I'm telling you, manifest anything you want. Touch it, think it, feel it, speak it out. You will find it and you will have it. It's amazing. And like I said, my husband's always telling me to touch money and manifest more money. And I try that too. And sometimes it works. But I love orange, and I love orange flowers, and I love orange roses. And that's kind of a theme in my house, like the muted reds and oranges. I really love them with the olive greens and the golds. And I like everything old and time-worn and faded. But I also wanted to remind you of a few things, like don't downplay the Dollar Tree. Don't do that, because I found these little pumpkins in there, and every now and then you find something in the Dollar Tree that you can use, and it won't look tacky in your house. I use some of their things. Now, some of their stuff is just totally tacky, but every now and then you can find something cool. And, I was showing you my little trays in my bedroom and saying that you can do this every now and then if the day's kind of dreary and you're staying in for the day. Make you a little pretty bed tray. And here I'm using the Dollar Tree candles that don't smell good at all. They don't even have a smell, but they are beautiful and they burned forever. I was so impressed with those little candles for $1.25. I got a red one and a green one. And they're still good for next year. I'm going to use them next Christmas. So don't downplay the Dollar Tree. Don't turn your noses up at it, because it's not bad sometimes. And then this was another little fall vignette I made, and it's just pretty. And you can always inject a little copper into your house. Copper goes with everything. And copper, you can find it at the thrift stores. Now, if you're in an antique store, you're going to pay, or in a new store. But thrift stores, about once a month, I find a good piece of copper. And so you can inject a little copper into your decor, and it's beautiful and classy, and I think it's really pretty. And then I had found this out in my antique store. I forgot I had, because I had found a carnival glass compote dish at a flea market, and I came home and put it on my fall table, and I thought, well, I have one of those out in the barn, so I went out and got it. So you can add color with thrifted stuff, and then you can repurpose things. Remember when I took the wine rack and used it for rolling pins? And don't overlook the free bins. Free bins always have frames in them. They always have little trinket things that are cute, and they're free. And don't overlook bag sales. This was the $2 bag sale I went to, and this was a almost 3-foot long canvas piece. It's hard canvas. It's got this Merry Christmas saying on it, and I bought it in the bag sale. I got a garbage sack full of stuff. I got it home, and I found it in a Country Living magazine, and I think it was $29.95 plus shipping and handling. And I got it in the $2 bag day thing, and it was fine. And guys, build stuff when you don't know how to build stuff. If you don't know how to do something, just do it anyway. I don't know how to build stuff. I just saw this in an antique store one day, and then I've seen them in magazines sitting on tables with Santa Clauses in them and beautiful little packages and greenery. And I wanted one, and I'd been thinking about it for years. And one day I just went out in the garage and drew me a picture, a pattern, drew it on a piece of paper, cut out the old crappy wood I had, started gluing it and nailing it together. I had no idea what I was doing, but I made it, and it's one of my favorite pieces, and I'll use it for years to come, and I'll pass it on to my kids. So do what you don't know how to do. Just do it. If you mess up, you mess up, but if you don't mess up, you have something. And that's how I do things. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I saw this in a magazine and thought, that's a cute little candle cubby thing just hanging on the wall, and it was like, I don't know, my memory, $29 or $39, maybe $79, I don't know. It's in a catalog or magazine. So I went out and cut some scrap wood, and in about a half an hour, including the stain time, I had this cute little candle cubby, guys. Just do it. Don't be scared. And take your husband's old Dockers that he's worn for 10 years and cut them up and make a piece of fruit, stuff it with stuffing, and paint it to look like a pear, and keep a bunch of them and sell a bunch of them. I bet you I've made over $150 off of a pair of his Dockers. I sell these pairs for $12.99, and I've sent out boxes of 6, and I've sold them in my store, and I have several on my trees. That one pair of Dockers made me a lot of money. So just look at things out of the box. Don't, his Dockers were old, and he was throwing them away. He said, here, toss these. And I went, oh, wait a minute. I'll make a pair out of that and paint it, and I'll make some pairs. And he's like, okay. But he doesn't doubt me. He knows what I'm going to do. So I made pairs out of Dockers. And then squeal when you find vintage looking candy molds at Goodwill for 99 cents a piece. Guys, I told you in one of my videos, Rosie collected these, and I loved them, and I always wanted to collect them, but they were so expensive I couldn't. And I knew I'd never find any at the thrift store, and one day I found these for 99 cents a piece at Goodwill, and I squealed. They're fabulous. And don't forget to overdo it. Cram stuff full of things. This is a basket full of pumpkins and rolling pins. Just, if you collect it and you've got it, decorate with it. I try not to buy things that I can't use in my house. Either use, decorate with, or just use and love. Or if it's a piece I just like to look at, I'll buy it. And I have to have a place for it. And of course I store a few things, but I pile it up, guys. I stack. I like my dishes. I just stack them up. And clutter. I guess some people would say clutter, but to me it's just organization, organized chaos. And spray paint ugly Avon bottles, and you're going to still smell them. They still smell like they did in the 70s. But I had I got George Washington as well, and I saw another lady had spray painted hers gold, so I painted mine a pewter color, and then let them dry, and they're beautiful. They almost look like bookends. So you can do that and appreciate the quirky stuff. I stop and look at all the quirky stuff in the stores because, by golly, somebody made that and they were proud of it. It's a ceramics piece that somebody handmade. And try to always appreciate gifts. This was a gift my friend Linda gave me years ago. She called me and she said, hey, Don just found this old desk out in the garage that's been here since we moved here, and it's dirty, but we're going to burn it. Do you want it? And I said, no, didn't need another old desk that needed burned. She said, well, it's cute. It's kind of dainty. And I went flying down to her house, and this was sitting in the yard, and all I did was wipe it down, guys. It was beautiful. And I think of her every time I look at it, and I appreciate it so much. It's one of my favorite pieces. And I'll tell you the story about the chair and everything later. And be a tucker. I'm a tucker. I tuck things in everything. I've got bowls and sitting around with stuff in them, and I get some cute little thing or an old picture I find in a drawer, and I think, oh, I want to look at Uncle George. So I just tuck it in the bowl. And sometimes I'll put it in a frame and put it up on a shelf, but I'm a tucker. And there's nothing wrong with being a tucker. And then you don't have to wrap Christmas presents or any kind of present. Just buy stuff that coordinates and put a big bow and greenery on top. And always add an extra egg white to your meringue. Nobody will know that you didn't follow the directions or the recipe, and you'll get mile-high meringue. I always use an extra egg yolk or extra egg white, and you'll get beautiful meringue. And don't be afraid to make yeast rolls. I used to be scared to death of them, and after 2 tries, I got it. It's not hard at all, and once you get it, you'll be so glad you did. My kids, oh my gosh, my family, they'll eat these all in one sitting. I'll just make a ton of them, and they just love them, and they're wonderful. And they're not as hard as I thought they would be. And after a couple of tries with an easy recipe off the internet, you can do it. And if all else fails, just make you a little 1/2 inch set with clay and put them in a dollhouse. And then decorate a room with thrifted stuff, all thrifted stuff. Everything you see in this picture is in my boy's apartment, and it's all thrifted. Just do it. Decorate a room with thrifted stuff. I did their whole apartment for about $400, and it's got 4 or 5 rooms in it. And it's beautiful. And it's up to date, and it's fine. And buy you some barware and put it on a pretty tray, even if you don't drink. Somebody might come by some night and want to drink. Guys, remember, I buy pretty barware, but I thrift it all. But this tray, do you guys remember this tray, how gorgeous it was? As soon as I saw it, I thought, I have to have that tray. I think it was $2.99. It's gold, and it's made to look old, and it's gorgeous. And yeah, I have a bar cart problem. I've got 2 bar carts now, and I don't even drink. And then, like I said, just do it. Paint. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to paint, but I paint. This is Man's Chapel. I've painted Man's Chapel in the fall and in the winter, and I'd like to do the spring and summer, but I haven't done that yet. But yeah, just get out some paints and a canvas and do it. If it's ugly, it's only ugly to you, believe me, because it's just fun. And if you don't want to paint, don't do it. And then another thing, love so deeply that you won't ever have any regrets. Friends, family, anybody, just love them. I love these people so much. This is my friend Brenda and her boyfriend Doug, who passed away a long time ago, and we miss him so much. This is my mom and dad, and couldn't have loved them anymore. My brother. Just love people. You'll never regret it. And like I said, I've showed you a lot of pictures of my family. I don't like to show too many pictures of myself because I hate all my pictures. But one time when my girlfriend's daughter got married, the boys were 3 years old, and she asked them to be ring bearers. So we got them little tuxedos and took them to Chicago to this big, beautiful wedding, and it was fabulous. But Marcus, he put his foot down and said he wasn't doing it. He said, I'm not doing that. And Matt didn't say a word, and when they got ready to push him down the aisle, Marcus he came stomping down the aisle like, this is awful, I hate it. And he went right to his dad when he got to the row we were in. And Matt just walked down there with the ring and walked up there and stood with all the kids that were in the wedding. And he stayed for 100 pictures. And Marcus finally got in on some pictures, but it was funny. And lastly, cut you some hydrangeas and put them in a basket or a vase and dry them. And I guarantee you'll have them for 20 years. I've had these for like 2.5 years, and they look exactly like they did the day I put them in this basket. And hydrangeas are my new dried flower. I just am going to dry them forever because you can get them in all colors, and you just put them in a basket. They'll dry. They're fabulous. So I want to thank you guys for always dropping by when I'm home and sharing my ideas and my crazy rambling talks and all the things that we do. And I've got a lot more in store. Easter decorations are coming up, and the tablescapes and the recipes and everything we're going to do for Easter. And I have so much gratitude for you guys for getting me to 2,000 subscribers. We're going to head out for 3,000 and 20,000 and 100,000 and get 1,000,000 eventually. It's going to happen. And when you're out thrifting or you're buying something and you think, why do I need this? Why am I drawn to this? I saw this saying that says, what it goes with is you. So if you're drawn to it and you want it and you can get it within your means and you love it, it goes with you. So that's my new mantra. All this junk I bring home, it goes with me. It goes with me. So again, thank you for this little trip down memory lane. I hope I could remember everything the way I did it in the first video. Please go back and watch my old videos if you haven't seen them. If you've just been watching the last few, you've missed a lot of content and a lot of fun. I sat last night and went through them and thought, man, these aren't too bad for me not knowing what I'm doing. And I want to thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends, like and subscribe. It's going to push me farther and farther, and I'm going to get to where I'm just so famous. I don't want to be famous. Anyway, I love you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I appreciate you so much, and I love you, and I can't wait for the next video, and it'll be coming up in just a couple of days because I took pictures today. Bye.